Good afternoon, everyone. This is Naishad Gadani from Melbourne, and it is 160th episode of Career Care Package. And on today's Career Care Package, we are talking about how to find a job in Australia, job search tips of finding a job in COVID 19 times and even beyond COVID 19 times. So that's what we are going to talk about today. And as our tradition of Friday, it is an open session. That means that you can ask us all the trickiest, toughest job search questions or career dilemmas, and we will endeavor to answer that question for you. We will not deflect the question like seasoned politician, but we will take that on as if an amateur politician as well. So just wanted to let you know, if you think that this episode or our discussion could be useful to some of your contacts on LinkedIn, please tag them here because you will do a world of benefit for them as well. So before we start to take your questions, let's welcome Caroline Brown, the co-host of the show.
Thanks, Naish. And it's funny because I think that, like a parliamentary session, we should have some Dorothy Dixer questions so we can answer them and just look amazingly smart. I think if you could do that, so here's something I prepared earlier. So, please, if you've got questions about anything at all related to your job search, put them in the comments, or and Naish and I will have a crack at answering them.
Absolutely, and we had such a amazing, array of guests in this week. I'm pretty sure that those people who watched the show and the episode with Simon would absolutely agree. The kind of discussion that we had and the kind of story that he had, it is such an inspirational but also deeply personal story that he shared about how he completely transformed himself from being a drug user to an operations manager in a social enterprise. If you have not watched it, I highly recommend you go and watch that episode.
Yeah, so really sorry, just talk across the top of you there, Naish, but but that was a half apology. I'm really sorry. What I found really interesting is that ice is one of the hardest drugs to ever get off. It's incredibly addictive, and he made the comment that he injects like 3 months worth of dopamine into your brain in the one hit, and once you have dopamine you just keep craving more and more of it. So it was an amazing story, and just the level of the things that he really focused on to pull himself out of it. But what really struck me was, he talked about his family and wanting to make his family proud, or have his family have a relationship with him. But it was his brother that gave him his break coming out of jail. And I feel like that just sort of says, in any circumstance, how important it is to have people around you that believe in you. And it may not necessarily be just, you're an amazing and fabulous person. That those people are the people that pull you up when you're being a bit of a dick, but also give you a lot of encouragement when you need that encouragement, particularly when you're looking for a job. So people that actually believe in you as well. So lots of great nuggets in Simon's amazing story that you could apply to your everyday job search, I think.
Absolutely. We started off obviously the week with Jo Green. She talked about 9 steps to changing career as well, which is also very simplistic, but also gave a lot of insights into the practicals and how to things as well. And then we dwelled into creative tactics. I think one of our listeners, shared the comments around how it starting to change the way she would now approach the job market, because I think we covered quite different tactics and practical tactics. Nothing was no techniques were that you have to buy a billboard across the Flinders Street or on Darling Harbour where you invest money from your home loan and try to get a job. It wasn't that kind of. It was just a smart but little bit different approaches to your job search. So I highly recommend you to go and again watch, because there are practical things that me and Caroline both shared as well. And then we obviously talked to PK, who is an absolutely amazing speaker and thinker around thought leadership, which was another brilliant episode. And we love to bring this diversity of ideas and diversity of thinking to your LinkedIn screen as we go along. KB, I wanted to start, just wanted to acknowledge Balin and Azar. Hello, Balin, and hello, Azar. And I've also seen a comments by Darshan. Thank you very much, Darshan, as well. Now, before we kick off, taking your questions, please keep them coming through as you feel like. I saw some of the statistics. In fact, it was posted by Gillian Kelly of Outplacement Australia, and I really liked some of the things that she talked about. I think she also quotes the report of Job White as well. And it is recently some statistics has come out. It says that after internal hires, employee referrals and jobs board remain the top rated source for hiring. In fact, social media, employee referral programs, and jobs board are the recruiting areas that most likely to see increased financial investment in next 12 months. This means always look for warm referral. I think that is the key message here. It also talks about that 71% of the organization offer employee referral programs, and hirers trust them. You have much better odds of winning an interview than an unknown in a big pile of applicants. I think that is absolutely clear. I'll probably cite a very interesting story. One of my client, she worked in IBM for probably 7 8 years. She came here in 2010, and she then started her family. After raising a family, she decided to move back, return back to work. Now she obviously did huge amount of work in IBM, specifically around project coordination work. That's what she specialized in. And then we obviously focused heavily around going to and talking to a lot of project coordinators, project managers, specifically in IT and business space. And that's what she started to do. Obviously, COVID did throw a spanner in the works that slowed down the networking, as well, because then she had to also look after the young ones at home, because a lot of things were closed outside. But then she again ramped up the effort, and it was very interesting that she connected to somebody in the New South Wales government, and then she found out the work that my client has done, and eventually there was a position available, and she got notified, and before even the date of last date of the application submission. The contact that she found, she actually helped her prepare the application as well. And the application was lodged. She was called for the interview, and 1 week later she has started a full-time ongoing role with New South Wales government. She Before she started that, she could not imagine that she would actually get that kind of work in a very interesting area of the government as well. So that's what the power of networking is. And it is also important to know that it doesn't happen in a fortnight as well. Sometimes it happens, but sometimes it takes a while. But you've got to keep at it. That's why kind of the story and some data around this.
I think the data says, like when I was preparing material for the Straight to Shortlist Challenge, I wanted to make sure that that approach was backed up by numbers. So, people say that there's 80% of jobs that are hidden, but I've never been able to find the numbers that actually, or the research that actually proves that. But the big data research that Gillian was quoting, they regularly do, those applicant tracking system firms, for want of a better word, regularly do that, where the sources of hire, basically. The three separate studies showed, millions and millions of applications showed that less than 1% chance of being successful if you applied via a job board or online to a career site. And you could increase your chances of being successful by 10 times, or 9.5, rounded up to 10 times, if you found a way to be referred. So, but from a public sector point of view, it's a little bit more challenging, because I think, we had Carolyn Smith on our show, talked about, whether you could actually network your way into a job in the public sector. It's harder to do that, but you can certainly build relationships with people that tell you about the culture of an organisation and positions that are coming up. And I also know from being on panels that if a candidate was known to the panel, they viewed that application or the answers in that application, they often gave it the halo effect. So they put in some assumed knowledge. So no process is ever scientific like that, as much as you try for it not to be. And, you know, sometimes on a panel, people are one person's more influential than the others. So networking can work in the public sector just as much as the private sector. But we've got a couple of questions. So we've got a question from Balan. Hi, Poonam. I'm not sure if we said hi, but hi. Got a question from Balan. Just for my knowledge, if the company already has an internal candidate in mind, is it compulsory for them to issue the advertisement and invite applications? No, it's not. For the private sector, no. They can, appoint in whatever way they choose to, as long as they're not violating any discrimination laws. But for the public sector, for permanent roles, they are required to advertise, and that goes for state and federal government. So it was to stop the nepotism of jobs for the mates or jobs for the family coming through. So, but sometimes organisations will still advertise even if they do have an internal applicant in mind, because they want to make sure that they're getting the best possible applicant out there in the market. So, that's absolutely my take on that situation.
And I think local councils also follow that, and some of the not-for-profits also follow. The big not-for-profits also have to have that, because that's part of their recruitment practices. So it's not mandatory, but what happens is that if you have got somebody who has already been, working in a casual capacity in that role, obviously, not necessarily that they will immediately have but you can imagine that person will have better chances, knowing the intricacies of the work, knowing the intricacies of the culture, the processes and everything. And if I am the hiring manager, obviously I would also nudge towards that, because the training part is already taken care of. And now this person is going to straight away work on Monday to Friday rather than, one day of a week. So I think that also plays a role there, Malin. But not necessarily. Private companies are absolutely at their free will to do, provided they are not, they are upholding the discrimination and those laws, and are not abusing that as well. But if we have seen that there are also a lot of positions which are also particularly marked for certain. This is a different answer or different thing altogether, Malin. But it's important to know, since I worked in indigenous, employment space, there are certain positions which are completely marked for somebody from an indigenous background, or someone, who comes from a specific, cultural background, just because they are using their knowledge and cultural knowledge and also cultural standing in the community in order to deliver certain programs and services. But they are primarily towards community services, in government services, deliveries, and all those things. Or even sometimes universities also use that kind of model as well. We've got a question from Saira. Hi, Saira. After the current crisis that Melbourne has passed through, how long do you think that things will get to normal regarding opening up jobs, and how much Christmas vacations going to affect it later? Kimi, do you want to take that on?
It's really hard to know, because, we don't know whether there'll be another lockdown. I think we've seen hiring pick up. We have seen it pick up, and there is more confidence in the air, and the more people are, approaching me for my help, and I'm sure for you, Nashad, as well. So, and also I think, just looking at the scenes of the day that the lockdown ended, or the second the lockdown ended, with all of that pent-up demand for people at Kmart and Target and God knows where else, there just seems like this burst of, we've got to spend money right now, or the world's going to end type thing. So I feel like there's going to be that kind of spurt. Around Christmas, I still think that people will be the normal sort of Christmas spending. I don't know whether, I think businesses might take some time to recover, particularly the ones that are impacted, and whether they'll be cautious about ramping up operations again as well. So it's a little bit hard to know, but I would just still be doing, putting my applications in, but given the volume of applications that'll still be out there, is very much going down the referral route if you can, in terms of finding a way to get your resume in front of somebody that you're not competing with thousands of people.
I agree. I think we will start to see some. Obviously, I'm not at all any labor market watcher or economist, so please treat my comments as with grain of salt or grain of chili, whatever that you like. But just to make, I think KB is right. I mean, I've been to shopping centers recently, and there's just the parking lots have been full. What it demonstrates is that a lot of retail jobs will come, and obviously Christmas is going to help us. Having said that, the majority of the market, if you work in the city, for example, there is not many influx of people in the city because the trains are still not. What I know is the trains are still not working. I've seen buses, working as well. But another major piece is the government's infrastructure push, which is also taken probably on a back seat right now because then not many people are working on that projects. But I feel that once that engine starts to run, we will see also people returning to work, but also we will also see that the government will have to invest probably more than what they've invested in order to create demand, in order to create that energy in the market that yes, we are creating this amount of jobs and this amount of investment. So I think it might be a little slow. I don't anticipate that we will start to see the normality in terms of the number of jobs. I think it's going to be a while. One prediction said that specifically, because I attended a couple of webinars on youth unemployment, challenges, as part of my part-time work, and where they said that it took 8 to 9 years for the youth, employment to be at the same rate, to be at the same numbers, before the global financial crisis. So it took probably 2008, 9 to 2015, 16 to come back at that. It's look, people who watch at a very, huge, look at, big numbers and everything, they will all be able to tell us. But I don't think so. I want all of us to get, drowned into that because what you and I are looking for is one job, one person. And that's what you're going to
Your voice is cutting a bit out with the microphone.
Yeah. So I think what I want you to focus on is one job, one person, and one thing at a time. Don't worry about what a particular economist say because they talk about very large volume of data and everything else. But I will, to answer your question, I will see a lot of jobs coming up. A lot of people are already starting to plan towards their holidays because the 25K limit is going to be squashed on 9th of November. So we will see that a lot of regional places will start to see influx of Victorian Melbourneians to go out and spend their Christmas also. So I think that is going to also ramp up effort, but it also depends on what kind of work do you do and whether that has a follow-on effect on you or not. So hopefully that's there answers a little bit your question. But if you got more, please drop it in.
Imtiaz says, hi Imtiaz, good to see you here. NG and KB, so the NG KB show. I don't think we've done that for a while. So, and if you've got questions, please put them in the comments. I was reading, briefly read a blog by Greg Savage around the decimation of the recruitment industry and just how many recruiters have lost their jobs in this crisis as well. And traditionally after a recession, the employment is the slowest thing to pick up. That's what's happened in the past as well. So, but no need to absolutely focus on getting everything right in your job search and apply all of the gold nuggets that Nation Eye and all of our guests are given throughout these shows as well. So, Poonam says, job market doesn't seem good. I hope it'll open up in January next year, using this time to learn new things instead of searching for jobs. Absolutely. And learn new things around, future-focused skills. So if you're in IT, get a security certification. Not that I'm in, see what's in demand. Have a look at, at the cutting edge or the bleeding edge of your profession, what's in demand. I mean, if we were to use our industry, for example, recruitment, it would be, I would be looking at AI in recruitment and how I could become well versed in all of those advanced sourcing techniques. In the career space, it's how to help people create video resumes. Just have a real look at the trends that are out there. I don't know, in the employment services space, what's that bleeding edge niche?
I think I'm not sure, to honestly, in employment services, but one of the thing is becoming very very important is the idea of micro credentials is also becoming very very huge. If you look at Coursera's and Udemy and all those places, they are very micro credentials. They target very specific skill. I think that era is right there, where you can really learn those micro credentials, get those micro credentials to help you improve your employability. And I think we're going to focus more on the word employability, because we think that the employability is more for university graduates or school leavers, where they talk about employability. Employability is probably something that travels with us lifelong. And that brings me to a topic that I think we previously also spoke about. And as part of my study, I'm researching that, which is lifelong learning. It is no longer a game where you acquire some knowledge and then, that will last for 6 to 12 months. Sometimes it won't even last that much too. One of the things that I can add to that is the idea of, I don't know how did I, got there, but I'm still building on that, is the one skill, 1 year. Think about learning one skill every year. It could be outside of your work. So if you work in IT, it may not be within the IT. It might be that you are learning to do stand-up comedy, for example. It's a skill, right? So pick up one skill every year. I think that is what my view is, that that's what makes your learning, your career far enriches you. Because you don't go to the company and say, I only know this, but you also bring a lot of ideas that you've been learning, different skills, and you bring that also into the play as well. Something that I have been practicing and I've been showcasing is the art of doodling, because I felt that not only differentiates me, but it also helps me to communicate complex ideas, and complex things into a better way to the audience out there. So I think that is where you go to really think about one skill 1 year, one skill per year or something. I don't know. I just
and when you're going
feel
for
like,
a job,
yeah.
that could be just the defining thing. If you're equally matched, it's the person that's continually educated themselves or has something that that organization would find useful. So I just Poonam says studying data science. Just reflecting on a conversation I had with my hairdresser when we we could go to the hairdresser. Well, we can now, but she was studying data science, and it was really funny. I'm like, that's the most bizarre career change that I've ever seen. And then the next time I went into the hairdresser, guess who'd gotten a job? So so it really, where there's absolute skill shortages, particularly around data and security and those sorts of things, if you're anyway inclined, just pitch yourself at those, because that was the most radical career change that I'd heard from anyone in a long time, basically. So she was a good hairdresser. She's a very good hairdresser. So,
She
but
would be a data-driven hairdresser. That she would say, "Okay, I've got 50,236 hairs,
that's right.
and should actually go into that amount of detail, which is fantastic for a hairdresser.
Let's
But
analyze
that's
which hairs I cut last time and what I'm going to cut this time. So, Imtiaz says, and I was just thinking about this. So I came across a quote that says, "Don't self-reject. This is very true in job searching context. What are your tips and wisdom? Wisdom, please note, Nash. Tips and wisdom for those who reject ourselves when we look for a job. I think we all have, like from coming out of the cave time, a tendency to respond to make fear-based decisions, basically. So we respond to threat versus look to the future. And so in this particular time, it's very easy just to lean always to the negative in your thought process. So you've got to be aware that you have that bias. But I always find in that scenario to do a bit of digging with myself, for example, to think, well, why do I think that? What's the reason? And then just to uncover the layers. And it often comes to somebody once said that I couldn't do that, or I actually don't have the belief that I can do that. So, and then you kind of think that a lot of your belief systems, or most of our belief systems, are just beliefs. They're not fact. And I would be, speaking to some people that are trusted friends around, do you think that I'm capable of this particular role? What do you think I'm capable of? And you can guarantee that it'll be a lot more than you actually think you are capable of doing. So if you actually, I think another thing that happens, if you look at something the first time, and then, a day later you decide not to do it, and that day later is the voice of fear, really. So if you look at it the first time and you go, yeah, I reckon I can do that's probably the best indication that you can, before you've got a chance to talk yourself out of it, because that can happen so easily, basically. And just to give you a little indication, there's been people that I've worked with, coaching them to approach people on LinkedIn for a meeting, and where I've gone, nah, they'll never say yes, and then that person said yes. So, everything is an assumed. Just assume that what your fear is an assumed outcome, and just test it out to see if it might be true or not, basically. So I hope that's some practical tips for you.
I agree. I can't beat that wisdom, Imtiaz. So I'll leave it there. But that's right. I think if we go and ask people what they think about us, sometimes we get shocked, and we said, you're talking about me, or you're talking about someone else. That's how it is. But Saira, yes, thanks, Naishad and Carol, and let's hope for the best, everyone. Absolutely. Balin saying that this lockdown has improved my cooking skill. Balin, look, now, look, but here is the thing, Balin. It is you saying it. Yeah,
Sorry?
you need evidence. We need evidence.
You're trying to get Balin to bribe you with some food. Is that?
You
Don't believe
can.
Balin, because I cooked some cream puffs the other day out of the 1980s Women's Weekly cookbook, and I said to Nashad that I was cooking them, and he's like, I need evidence. So my neighbour recorded a review and sent it to Nash. So, but don't believe him. Good on you. I'd love to see a photo of something delicious that you've cooked.
Yeah, but we also need the evidence. A photo, I can download a lot of fancy photos,
like a newspaper cutting of today's date, or recorded
something
review.
like that. Recorded review is fine. I'm happy with it. I think that carries. It's like LinkedIn recommendation. You can't cheat. Unless you pay somebody on Fiverr to give you recommendation, which comes from Ukraine or some other part of the world that you never traveled, and you receive an absolutely glowing LinkedIn recommendation by paying $5-10. We don't want that, Balin. We want it to come from either your neighbor or either your immediate family members. And also, you're not, also threatening them as well. So either or, but that's really good. I think I think people have taken um, kind of an inward journey in this last 6 months, and particularly I didn't realize that we were in lockdown for 109 days or 112 days or something.
Yeah,
I don't even remember. I think thankfully, KB, we've been doing this LinkedIn Live. At least that keeps us sane.
that's right.
At least we got to keep putting the same face for 5 days for 5 hours.
Mm.
That keeps us flowing as well. But yeah, if you got any more questions before we start to wrap up today's show, please drop that in as well, KB.
I just want to say I have actually posted my cooking efforts on my Instagram feed. It's Brown Carolyn. So if you want to go and see, there is some chocolate cream puffs, lemon meringue pie. Can't remember what I made last week. Oh, lamingtons. I've gone down the Aussie route. So yes, go and have a look. They're delicious. I'm starting a new career as a chef, a pastry chef. So
Or as Instagram chef.
mm,
Yeah, that's really
indeed.
cool. Imtia says 7 months of LinkedIn Live is amazing. Absolutely, I cannot disagree with you on that. And we've got more and more amazing guests also coming up, in the next few weeks as well. So we are really excited to bring new thinking, to your LinkedIn screen as we move forward. So I don't think so, KB, we've got any more questions. It seems like that we are doing exceptional
I
job
know.
that we are
I know.
answering.
That's what I say. It's we've answered everybody's questions, and we should wrap it up.
Absolutely. Before we wrap it up, let's talk about next week. So next week we have got a holiday coming up on Cup Day. So Tuesday there will be no session on a Tuesday, but we are going to continue our session on Monday, which is still long as part of the long weekend. But you know what? We are going to continue on Monday. So we will see you again on Monday. Let me tell you what's happening next week. So next week we got a bit diverse, guest coming up. So we've got a guest coming up from Canada. His name is, Brandon Kumarasamy. Now, he's got an interesting story. He works in IBM. He's in his early 20s, but he has mastered the art of public speaking and pitching specifically. And he coaches many, many people all across the world now in his learning that he had after doing his MBA and learning to present case studies to the audience. So he's going to come and talk about some of online teaching and online presentation ideas, which are fantastic. I've spoken to him once. And then Tuesday, we are taking a break. And on Wednesday, we are talking to Jenny Ways. Now, she is currently working as a recruiter, but she has got an interesting story. She has worked in 4 or 5 different countries. And that's what we are going to talk about, working in different countries and different continents, and now working in Australia. What are her learnings of career and life? That's going to be very interesting chat. And on Thursday, we are speaking to Sandy McDonald. Now, Sandy is a storyteller, and that's what she likes to be known as. And we are going to talk to her about articulating your career story. How can you really articulate a better, more profound, and more interesting career story to your audience, specifically around in the interview? So that's going to be coming on Thursday and Friday. We will take this question again on an open question answer forum. Anything else, KB?
So Shul's just snuck in a question at the last minute, which is finding a tough time finding a job in Australia from Thailand. Mostly sorry replies. Any clues? I know we've actually had a couple of sessions of people that have applied for jobs while still being in India, and I will put that link to the YouTube video because about the work that person did, and I'm having a brain snap. I can't remember their name, but I remember the video. But basically, he spent that time doing an enormous amount of networking, particularly with people that have gone down a similar path. So I would suggest looking on LinkedIn and putting in some keywords with your profession, your country, but location Melbourne, and see who pops up that has gone down that same path. with, reach out to them and ask for their advice on how they did it, which recruiters they found useful, things for you to look out for. I'd also make sure that your LinkedIn profile and CV really are attuned to Australian circumstances. So, make sure that you're using the same language that has the value that you've delivered very prominently. There's a couple of sessions that we've done on resume writing in this career care package that will help you. So I would definitely do that. What else off the top of my head?
Yeah, I think if you go to, I'll put the social, I'll send you the link of her YouTube channel, and I think the one that KB are talking about is when Yashdeep came on board, and he talked about his approach to connecting with many people before even arrived here, which really not necessarily he got a job through that, but it just gave him a lot of insights and confidence
Yeah.
about how can I really approach, on how does the employment market in Australia really work. So, Sushil, if you want to drop me or KB a line, and we will direct you to where that video is.
Just one other thing too is that if you haven't worked for big name companies, there's a formula that I use in terms of resumes and LinkedIn profiles that help people understand, which is a couple of lines about the organisation, a couple of lines about the challenges of that role, whether it be the market position, the competitors, the time, whatever, but make sure people understand the challenges and then go into the value that you delivered versus just listing your skills, because that creates that story and gives people context. And I've noticed that a lot of people from overseas make a lot of assumptions about that we would know, that we would know that organisation. And I know particularly in India Nation, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but, some government bodies have hundreds of thousands of applications, or it's really, really difficult to get into some government bodies and some banks and some institutions. So we don't know that. We don't have those numbers in Australia, but those sorts of things and that sort of context actually is really interesting to local employers.
Yes, Sushil, so I would suggest you to reach out to me or Caroline, and then we will direct you to some resources which will help you to really get that confidence back, and approach, as well. So, yes, so now everything, we will talk about, remaining things next week. So until we see you next week, guys, have a happy and, safe weekend. We will see you on Monday.
And don't forget to subscribe and follow the hashtag Career Care Package. Yes, got that in.
That's what we want.
Bye,
We
everyone.
don't want anything else.